Chapter 6, A True Menace. Annabelle and Tiffany waited impatiently in the backpack for the last bell of the day to ring. When it did, Annabelle said, "Yay!" and Tiffany said, "Finally." A few minutes later, over the noise in the hall, the dolls heard Kate say, "Call me tonight, Ayana," and then, "Hey, wait up." The backpack was grabbed off the shelf, and the dolls were jerked from side to side as a pair of arms slipped into it. And then at last they were being bumped along through the halls of the school. Annabelle could tell when they were outside again. The darkness in the pocket lightened softly, and the roar of the voices died away. The walk home was quieter than Annabelle had thought it would be. She had distinctly heard Kate tell someone to wait up, but now she heard no voices. She wanted to ask Tiffany about this, but she dared not to make a sound. Presently, and in fact sooner than Annabelle had expected, she heard a door being opened and closed, and then, "Hello, is that you?" "Yep, it's me. Are there any cookies?" "In the cabinet." A little girl's voice said, "Don't hide those." Nora's voice, wondered Annabelle. It didn't exactly sound like Nora, and she thought if one of the other voices sounded like it might belong to a boy. Had Kate invited a boy over? Annabelle didn't think Kate had any friends who were boys. For the next hour, Annabelle and Tiffany sat silently in the backpack, listening to the voices and sounds around them. Annabelle held Tiffany's hand because she was growing nervous. Something was wrong. The voices were wrong. The sounds were wrong. Even the names were wrong. BJ and Callie. And Mom, which was wrong too, because Mrs. Palmer didn't come home from work until almost supper time. The only grown-ups who would be home was Grandma Catherine. Without warning, the backpack was lifted off the ground and carried somewhere. Up a flight of stairs, Annabelle thought. Then set down. The voices shifted and moved away. Downstairs, maybe? Annabelle heard thumps and the voices calling to one another, and doors opening and closing nearby, and finally, further away, car doors opening and closing. Eventually, she heard the car's engine start up and roar to life, then grow fainter. The house was in silence. "Where do you think we are?" whispered Tiffany. "I don't know, but I have a feeling we're not in Kate's room." The dolls remained in their backpack until they guessed that half an hour had passed. They did not hear a sound. "Do you think it's safe to look out?" Annabelle asked. Tiffany nodded, and she and Annabelle stood up and peeked into the room. Annabelle's eyes widened. She swallowed hard. Next to her, Tiffany whispered, "Uh-oh, I think we're in the wrong house." Annabelle remembered the day before when she had sat on the shelf above Kate's coat looking down on the floor. She had thought she was the most scared she had ever been. She realized that whatever she had felt then was nothing compared to what she felt now as she gazed around the room she and Tiffany were in and realized that Tiffany was right. This was not a room in the Palmer's house. She and Tiffany had explored the Palmer's house much too thoroughly to have missed something like this. No, this was a bedroom she had never been in before, and Annabelle was pretty sure it was a boy's bedroom. "Tiffany," said Annabelle, "we're in the wrong house, and it's Friday night. We won't even be able to try to get back to school until Monday. We will have been away from home for 4 days. Our parents were probably panicking when we didn't come home last night. They must have been hoping and hoping we'd come back tonight. Now we won't be able to get home until Monday, and we might not even get home then. What if whoever this backpack belongs to doesn't take it to school on Monday? What then? What if someone sticks the backpack in the closet and forgets about it and—" "Annabelle, for heaven's sake, stop saying things like that. Let's wait and see what happens on Monday. If we can't go back to school in the backpack, we'll go in a lunchbox or something. I'm not going to worry about that now. Let's just try to get through this weekend." "I'd give anything to be stuck up in a soap dish again while Nora plays Miami Beach a go-go," said Annabelle. "How did we get in the wrong backpack anyhow?" "The scarf must have been moved," replied Tiffany. "I bet it got shoved aside, and we climbed up to the coat that was next to Kate's. We heard her voice in the hall, remember? So she was nearby." Annabelle sighed. She gazed around the room. "Look at this mess," she said. Annabelle had never seen a bedroom with so much stuff in it. Even Nora's messy room was tidier than this one. The floor here was an ocean of paper scraps and glue bottles, crumbles and empty pretzel bags, plastic lizards and dinosaurs, Lego pieces, cardboard tubes from paper towel rolls, seashells, tiny metal trucks, and open paper-back books. Spilling from the shelves were magazines and banks and coins and markers and pencils and cassettes and baseballs and boxes with padlocks and drawings of cars and spaceships and aliens. Covering the walls were more drawings and several posters of basketball players. The door to the room was open, and Annabelle could see 3 handwritten signs on it. One said, "My room." One said, "Do not enter." One said, "Boys only." On a table next to the bed was a glass tank containing 4 goldfish. On the floor underneath the window was a bigger glass tank. This one was holding an enormous lizard. When Annabelle saw the lizard, she nearly screamed, but she caught herself in time. "Tiffany," she whispered, "look." "I know," said Tiffany, following Annabelle's gaze. "I wonder what kind of lizard it is." "Probably the kind that eats dolls," Annabelle muttered. "Oh, Annabelle," said Tiffany. She paused. "What's that sound?" "What sound?" "Shh! Be quiet and listen for a minute." Annabelle held herself very still. She heard the faraway hum of a refrigerator and the whoosh of a car outside. And then from very nearby, chirp, chirp, chirp. Annabelle glanced at Tiffany, and Tiffany raised her eyebrows. Chirp, chirp, chirp. Tiffany was gazing around the room. "Hey, there's a whole cage full of crickets next to the lizard," she said. "Oh, ew!" cried Annabelle as her eyes settled on the crickets. "Poor things. You know what they're for, don't you, Tiffany?" "No, what?" "They're lizards' foods." "The lizard eats crickets?" "Alive," said Annabelle emphatically. "That's disgusting." "Well, at least we don't have to worry about that they'll eat us." Annabelle and Tiffany watched the lizard and crickets for a while. Still, they heard no human noises and no sounds of humans. "I think we could get out of the backpack," said Annabelle, "don't you?" "I guess so," replied Tiffany. "We can't get in much more trouble than we're already in." Annabelle, thinking of doll states, said nothing, but climbed out of the backpack. Since the backpack had been set on the floor, she and Tiffany were out in the messy room in no time. They began to wade through the papers and crimes and trucks and dinosaurs. "Ugh!" screamed Annabelle as she came face to face with a lizard that was exactly how tall she was. "Relax, it's plastic," said Tiffany. Annabelle grabbed Tiffany's hand and clutched it as they continued across the room. They were approaching several metal racing cars that Tiffany hoped she could fit in when, out of the corner of her eye, Annabelle saw something move. She whirled around in time to see 2 dolls. A small, old-fashioned one that by an absolutely enormous one entered the room. Annabelle tugged on Tiffany's hand, pointed to the dolls, put her fingers to her lips, and pulled Tiffany behind a hill of wadded-up papers. Cautiously, she and Tiffany peered around the hill. Annabelle saw that the small doll, who was taller than Annabelle, but still much smaller than the other doll, was dressed as a princess. She wore a glittery lavender dress and lavender slippers with silk ribbons that twined and crisscrossed up her legs. On her head sat a lavender crown, studded with plastic emeralds and rubies, and in her hand was a wand topped by a sparkling star. The large doll was, Annabelle guessed, almost as tall as Nora, and she was wearing a short dress and a pair of shoes that Annabelle was pretty sure would fit Nora just fine. She lurched after the princess doll, crashing stiffly along, since her arms and legs were jointed only at the shoulders and hips, and she couldn't bend at her elbows or knees. "What on earth?" Tiffany started to whisper to Annabelle as she glared at the giant doll. At that moment, the princess turned to face the giant and commanded, "Charge!" Annabelle completely forgot about being quiet. "How do I know we're in here?" she squeaked to Tiffany. But Tiffany nudged her, shaking her head, and Annabelle saw the princess point not at them, but across the room. As she watched, the giant lurch forward nearby, smashing into a group of small dolls huddled beneath the table. The dolls screamed and scattered, looking, Annabelle thought, for a better hiding place. "After them!" the princess shouted. The giant changed directions and stomped after the fleeing dolls. Annabelle and Tiffany locked eyes. They didn't need to speak to know what they must do. They leapt to their feet and ran from behind the hill of papers. Tiffany raised her arms. "We'll help you!" she cried. "Go hide in the backpack!" One of the dolls, who was Annabelle's size and wearing yellow pajamas and a pair of fuzzy yellow slippers, replied, "There are too many of us. We don't have enough time." She glanced wildly around the room. "Quick! In here!" "Us too?" said Tiffany. "Yes. Hurry." Annabelle and Tiffany followed the dolls through the low doorway of a strange structure, and Annabelle, peeping through a narrow window, saw the giant's shoes smashed down in the spot where she had just been standing. Chapter 7, The Longest Night.